Hear me out now. I'm not saying that beginners should run out and buy this Canon 100mm macro as their first lens ever. But if you're deep enough into photography to know that you'll be an enthusiast for the long haul, this could very well be your first great lens. It was definitely mine, and it's still my favorite today. It's relatively affordable for an L lens, keyword relatively, and as much as we may dream of those sweet, juicy 70 to 200mm f2.8s, this lens stands in as a much more affordable prime lens option in the middle of that focal range. When I tell you about how much I love the Canon 100mm macro, it's as much about the lens itself as it is about how it contributed to my personal photography journey. Number one, compatibility. I didn't appreciate this part until recently, but this lens works equally great on your entry-level crop sensor body as it does on your full frame body if you grow your hobby and decide to bump up later on. DSLR, mirrorless, it doesn't matter. For me, I loved getting to explore this lens twice. When I started using it on my Canon T7i, it was essentially a 160mm focal length. And on my RP, which I'm filming with right now, it acts as a true 100mm on the full frame. I was a bit nervous that it wouldn't perform as well using the EF to RF adapter, but the autofocus is fast and the lens is just as sharp. So the cool thing here is that you can buy this lens for your EF mount today and not have to worry if it will be compatible with your next body, so long as you think you'll be staying within the Canon ecosystem. I really wanted this lens to explore a telefocal length, one that I didn't have a chance to shoot with beforehand. At the time, 55 was my longest reach on a crop sensor, and this would be beyond that. Plus, I would get the macro capability. But there was only one problem, and that was the price. Now, this is one of Canon's cheapest L lenses, but at $899, no matter how you slice it, this is expensive for beginners and enthusiasts. I was able to pick up the 50mm Nifty 50 as my first lens without feeling like I was breaking the bank. The 100mm was a different story. There are several options to get longer focal lengths for less money, but they all didn't have macro capabilities, and a lot of them had smaller apertures. I was at a crossroads in my photography because I knew I was deep enough that I didn't want to frequently accumulate lots of old EF and EFS lenses. Instead, I knew I wanted to invest less frequently in higher quality glass that I could grow with throughout my journey. And so while I was considering dropping that much money on this lens, I came to the realization that photography would be one of those hobbies that I would want to bring my innate entrepreneurial curiosity to. Up until that point, I was largely shooting for fun, trying to challenge myself and learn as quickly as I could, but I knew that getting paid gigs would allow me to invest in equipment like this and afford myself new and different photography experiences. In this case, a new focal length, a macro, and a lens well suited for product photography, something that I was super interested to do a little bit more of. That's kind of sappy, but while I was considering this lens, it drove me to find my first little paid shoot. And after that shoot, I decided to purchase this lens. It will always have sentimental value because it really helped motivate me to practice often, post often, and curate my Instagram as a portfolio of sorts. And if this added context about a lens purchase from a fellow creative resonates at all with you, please consider subscribing. On this channel, I'll be documenting my creative journey and hoping to connect with others on a similar path. Another thing I'm digging is the performance. Coming from the lenses I'd used previously, this was sharper, faster, quieter, and it has the characteristic L lens build quality. Honestly, it's just really fun to shoot with compared to some of the older or cheaper Canon lenses that a lot of us beginners are using at the start. One of the characteristics of the performance that I love is how easily you can absolutely obliterate your backgrounds. The bokeh is really nice, and this focal length helps give you plenty of separation between your subject and your background. Combined with the macro capability, you'll be able to create plenty of images that look different from your previous work. That is, if you were like me and hadn't used a longer focal length that let in a good amount of light. The last thing, but maybe the coolest, is that I use this lens a lot as a walk-around lens. It's my go-to lens to bring on shorter little hikes. Typically, you might use a 24, a 35, or a zoom lens for something like that. And obviously, you're not going to be capturing any majestic vistas when you take this as your only lens on a hike. But honestly, if you bring this with you on the trail, you can always use your phone for those wider type of shots if you feel compelled to take them. The benefit to bringing this lens is really in taking great close-up photos of nature and to be able to get sharp portraits of the people that you're with, especially when taken from a distance. It's weather sealed, so that's a plus as well. With my Rebel T7i, I wasn't able to take full advantage of that benefit, but now with the Canon RP, I'll feel a lot more confident in a quick drizzle or a light snow.